There are 3 secrets that have been buried for 2,000 years. Can you hear the whispers from that night? Do you think Nero was crazy, or was he a genius? If you think darkness is a place where there is nothing, look again. If you believe that the past still has something to say, then join me in listening to the echoes of time. But the fear lingers in every account of his reign. And then, as quickly as it began, the terror subsided. For a time, Caligula would move on to other horrors, declaring himself a god, ordering temples built in his name, mocking senators by naming his horse Incitatus, a consul. But the night of the murdered senators had set a precedent that even the highest men in Rome could be slaughtered like common criminals. It was the night the Senate died, not in law, but in spirit. This was no random purge. It was theater, political warfare masked as divine justice, a message carved in blood. I am the empire, and perhaps the most chilling part, there is no monument, no plaque, no ruins to mark where those senators died, only silence, until now. Secret 2, Nero and the Great Fire. It began on a sweltering July night in the year 64 AD, a single spark in the merchant stalls near the Circus Maximus. Within hours, it became an inferno. For 6 days, the eternal city burned. Marble cracked from the heat. Temples crumbled. Entire neighborhoods gone. And at the center of it all was the emperor. Some say Nero watched the fire from the tower of Maecenas, dressed in theatrical robes, plucking a lyre as flames danced across the skyline. He sang of the fall of Troy while his own capital crumbled. An image so haunting, it has echoed for 2,000 years. But was it madness, or was it design? As the smoke settled, a chilling pattern emerged. The districts spared by the fire were the ones built wide and orderly, the kind Nero favored. The areas destroyed were the old, cramped quarters, insulae, taverns, temples, the beating heart of Rome's past. Within weeks, Nero unveiled a plan, a new Rome, a modern, fireproof city built from marble with grand boulevards and towering palaces. At its heart, the Domus Aurea, the Golden House, a vast, glittering complex stretching over hundreds of acres, complete with artificial lakes, gilded halls, and a 30-meter bronze statue of himself, the Colossus of Nero. This wasn't just urban planning. This was an emperor rebuilding history in his image. And yet, the people were not fooled. Whispers began. Had Nero lit the fire himself to clear the land for his dream? Had lives, thousands of them, been sacrificed for ego? Facing growing unrest, Nero needed a scapegoat. He found it in a small, strange sect, one already despised by many, the Christians. They worshipped a crucified man, refused to honor Roman gods, and spoke of an impending apocalypse. Easy targets. Within days, arrests began. Dozens were rounded up, tortured until they named others. A web of accusations spread like fire. Tacitus, the Roman historian, writes that the executions were not merely punishment, they were spectacle. Some were torn apart by dogs, others crucified, and some, the most haunting of all, were coated in pitch and burned alive at night to serve as torches in Nero's private gardens. Human lanterns flickering under the Roman moon. It was horror dressed as justice, and it worked. For a while, Nero had redirected the people's rage, but the blood he spilled that summer would haunt the empire for centuries. The persecution of Christians began here, not in a courtroom, but in the ashes of a city lit by an emperor desperate to rewrite his legacy. And yet, history refused to forget. Archaeological excavations beneath the modern city have revealed signs of hurried rebuilding. Foundations that don't match earlier layouts. A subterranean city reshaped overnight. Even beneath the Basilica of St. Peter's, deep below the Vatican, lies what many believe is the tomb of Peter himself. A man crucified during that purge, upside down, by Nero's command. The empire tried to erase him, and instead built its future on his grave. So was Nero the arsonist of Rome? We may never find the spark that started the fire, but we know this. Nero built his palace upon the ashes and lit his legacy with the bodies of martyrs. That is not coincidence. That is power, absolute, ruthless, and terrified of being forgotten. And in trying to make himself eternal, Nero may have ignited something even greater. A movement that would one day outlive the empire he ruled. Secret 3: The Spies. Inside the imperial palace. They wore no armor, they carried no sword, and yet they were the most dangerous force in the Roman Empire. Rome was not ruled by emperors alone, but by whispers, exchanged in shadowed halls, behind drawn curtains, and sometimes even across the dinner table. For beneath the marble splendor of the imperial palace lay something darker, a network of informants, agents, and watchers, spies. It began under Augustus, the first emperor, who knew that power wasn't just won on the battlefield, but preserved in silence. To him, the most lethal weapon was information, and so he created the frumentarii. Officially, they were grain officers, low-ranking bureaucrats who traveled the empire ensuring food supply to the legions. But unofficially, they became Rome's eyes and ears. They could move unnoticed. They could ask questions. They could listen. By the 2nd century, under emperors like Hadrian and Marcus Aurelius, this quiet force had evolved. No longer just provincial scouts, they were now the inner circle's watchdogs. Their reach extended from Alexandria to Londinium and deep into the palace walls. The emperor no longer trusted senators, nor generals, nor even family. Every gesture was watched, every word weighed. One wrong phrase, a joke made at dinner, a comment about the emperor's health, and it could be reported. The accused might awake the next morning to find their door sealed, or worse, escorted to the Tullianum prison below the Forum. But perhaps the most terrifying aspect of this system was that no one knew who the spies were. Your slave could be one, your scribe, even your lover. Historians tell us that under Domitian, a paranoid and ruthless ruler, secret informants were rewarded with gold and status. The emperor would dine with his enemies, all while their words were recorded by hidden ears. Entire senatorial families disappeared in the night, their lands seized, their names erased from monuments. One general, Lucius Flavius, reportedly smiled at a court performance where the actor mimicked the emperor's limp. The next day, he was found hanging in his home, ruled a suicide, though the rope left no mark. No charges were made, no trial, just a silent warning. But it wasn't just emperors who used the system. Empresses, too, wielded the spy network like a dagger behind silk. Take Julia Domna, wife of Septimius Severus. A brilliant woman, philosopher, and power broker. She surrounded herself with poets and scholars, but also spies. Letters intercepted, rivals exposed, conspiracies crushed before they ever took form. Even within the imperial family, trust was a myth. Brothers spied on brothers, sons betrayed fathers. The throne of Rome became a game of survival where knowledge was currency and silence protection. A single scroll slipped beneath a door, a whispered warning, a name spoken once in the wrong chamber. That was all it took to fall from grace or ascend. We often imagine Roman emperors as gods among men, ruling with thunderous decrees. But the truth is quieter and more chilling. They ruled in fear and through fear, because they knew power attracts ambition, and ambition breeds betrayal. So they listened and watched and waited. What survives of this system is fragmentary. Inscriptions from disgraced officials, private letters smuggled from exile, references in legal codes to delatores, the accusers. Most records were erased, burned, hidden, because the greatest secret of the imperial spy network was that it was everywhere, and perhaps it still is. Because every empire, ancient or modern, knows it is not enough to rule from a throne. They also rule from the shadows. 3 whispers buried in the bones of an empire that once ruled the known world. A senator's blood spilled in the shadows of Caligula's Rome, not by barbarians, but by men in silk and gold, acting on imperial fear. A city set ablaze, whether by madness or calculation, where an emperor rebuilt his legacy in marble and lit the night with human torches, and a palace whose walls still echo with secrets, watched not by gods but by spies in disguise, recording every betrayal with ink and silence. Each secret is like a crack in the marble facade, small at first, but revealing the fragile truths behind the illusion of absolute power. And yet, if these are the stories we have found, what lies beneath the ones we haven't? Because for every tomb unearthed, every scroll deciphered, every mosaic fragment pieced together, there are 1,000 more still sealed in time, beneath volcanic ash, under cathedrals, inside forgotten vaults. History doesn't whisper to everyone, but if you've made it this far, then maybe, just maybe, you hear it too. The echoes beneath the ruins, the silence between the lines of ancient texts, the truths that power tried to bury. We can uncover them. So if you feel the weight of time, if you believe the past still has something to say, then join me. Hear the echoes of history calling. Subscribe. Hit the bell. Drop a comment below with the ancient mystery you want us to uncover next.